at the moment, I am doing this training. It's called CHPC training. So CHPC is Certified High Performance Coach, which is something from Brendon Burchard. So he's the expert when it comes to marketing and self-development. I've been following him for over a decade now. And I have to say, he is one amazing guy, and he's goofy too. So it's fun to watch him, and I keep learning so many things from him. So last March I got to do my first certification for CHPC. And whenever you would see me on StreamYard, for instance, or on Zoom, then you probably see that I'm using CHPC, which of course is the Certified High Performance Coaching. Now, I've been a coach for over a decade now. And hello, I've been a coach for over a decade now. And I've gone to local trainings, schools like every other Saturday, uh, both in coaching and in counseling as a student, but also as a co-trainer. And so the reason I wanted to become a certified high performance coach was because Brennan kept talking about the old style coaching versus the new style coaching, which brings me to, why do you want to have that change? Do you know your why? And well, I wanted to know, what's the difference? What's the difference between coaching the way I have learned it and what he says it would be? And of course, there was also, well, not of course, there was also a matter of opinion or difference in opinion with someone else. So we have therapists, and then I was told therapists are there to listen. Well, I think coaches are there to listen. Therapists usually have a backpack full of tools, so they will tell you how to do stuff. Which, when we talk about coaching, yes, coaches use frameworks, but it's still about listening. But I'll get into that in a little bit. Then there was being a trainer and a mentor. A mentor basically does it all. So it was like, okay, this is confusing. I need to figure out how it works. And well, I wanted to be, was I the old style version or the more up to date? Now, what I've come to understand today is that the old style version is the one who asks, hey, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? What have you done? What helped? What didn't work? What are you going to do? And when are we going to have the next session? And bye. So there is not much wrong with it, but we can take it to a next level. So when I talk about what I did last year, one of the things that I actually started doing was doing frameworks and all the other stuff. So getting back to why I did it and how it was for me, I'll honestly have to say it was a lot to dig in. There, this is just for today, and that doesn't look like much, but there's an option one and an option two with sample emails, which is nice. And then there are focal points for the session, which go in to areas like clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. And you might recognize those topics, right? We've had the clarity challenge multiple times. I've done the energy challenge. Remember the Christmas challenge, which was in December, about how do we actually get through the months? The courage challenge, which followed after. And then in February, I did a productivity challenge, and I was like, oh my God, can I actually talk about productivity? And I did it. I got it done. And then both in March and last month, I talked about influence. So he actually has another topic straight after, which has to do with psychology. And doing influence for a second month in a row, I was like, well, that still has to do with psychology. And right now I'm talking about change, which was also inspired by Brendan. And I'm like, well, change is also very important. And it's one of the hardest things. So at some point during a training, he said, how do you deal with change and how do you deal with chaos? And I was like, okay, yeah. And when we talk about the mental stuff, then yes, that's right it. Today was the second day of CHPC training. And before you say what? Well, that's Certified High Performance Coach. And that's something that has been developed by the one and only Brendan Burchard. Now, of course, you can say, so what does this have to do with change? If you're watching this, then I assume that you know that the theme for this month, the month of May, is change. Well, at least on my account. And here's the thing. I never thought that doing this training again would be so much easier compared to last year. What I don't get, and I absolutely don't get it, is there are things I recognize. I mean, the handouts I recognize, the training I recognize as in us working together, branding, explaining things. And then there are things I absolutely do not recollect. And I'm like, am I the same person? Was I at the same training last year? So there were things that I actually picked up on. Like, for instance, what did people get out of the training? And I know about the importance of rating yourself as a coach afterwards. And yet it's like I'm a different person, or something has happened to me in between, or the training is different, but I don't think he's giving it differently compared to last year. But I pretty quickly get into the energy, and even with little sleep, I'm still energized. As a matter of fact, at some point, I was so tired that we had a 3-minute break, 2 minutes. I closed my eyes. Then I needed to be the coach. And I don't think they even noticed it, that I was so tired. Now, what I do realize, and that's what I hear Brennan saying, is that all the coaches who do this for the first time, so these are either already experienced coaches or new coaches or new to be coaches, for them it's very exciting because they don't know what to expect. And of course, I didn't know what to expect either last year. But apart from that, I'm like, what? What has changed? Why is it so different? And is it really just because this is the second time around? Does that really make all the difference? I don't know. I seriously do not know. But what I do know is last year I couldn't get my printer working, so it was printed next door, which was amazing. So I did have all the stuff. And I also know going through the sheets, but the ease that I'm doing it with now, the only thing I can explain it to you, well, actually there are two things. The first one is I have been working with this new set of rules, not literally with the questions, but with a number of things. So I really have been working on the idea of how does this work. I've been doing challenges, getting into the modules to get better acquainted with the modules. And of course, I've had a lot of training from Brendan in between. Is that what makes the difference? Is it because I've had so many training in this year, which makes the difference? But it feels like it's like I was there last year, and yet I wasn't, or I cannot explain. It's such a different experience, and I don't think it's really important that it's so different. It's just something that I observed. And for me, when I talk about change, it proves to me that if you keep going and you are, like I said, fully immersed in a certain topic, that things will get easier. Step by step, things will get easier, and you will be, it will be easier to deal with all the things surrounding whatever change this is. And you will start to realize, oh yeah, I can use this, and then also apply it, and then, oh yeah, this, and then apply that as well. And then the next thing, like, oh, actually, it's not that difficult. I believe that it's training the skill which makes all the difference. And having been training myself to get out there for over 150 days, doing training, well, I wanted to say every other week, but I'm doing more training than every other week. So multiple times a month, I'm getting training, and that might make most difference. I've got a coach, and we are doing the second set of 12 sessions. And these are the chart sessions. So I'm going to get the chart sessions too this time around. That's cool. And every time I get training, I prepare, I get homework where I answer questions, and she explains things to me. And that might be the difference. The homework preparation and her explaining how she sees things and her asking me questions. I think that's what I recognize. So yeah, that's actually kind of cool. I think that I now know why it's so much easier. I have changed. And with a big thank you to my coach, Sandra is her name, by the way, and of course, Brendan Burchard and his staff. Realizing that I am one of the people who is actually the most experienced during the training. Wow, that was interesting. Last year, of course, I had like over a decade of experiencing in coaching, but I still was a newbie when it came to CHPC. And this year around, sometimes I'm in a group, in a breakout group, and it's me and two newbies. And sometimes people haven't even been coached. Yesterday was very interesting when someone said to me, I want to be coached by a real coach. And I was like, okay. So, of course, the whole goal after the whole training is that everyone goes on and they keep on practicing. We get together at least once a month. And of course, the whole goal is that people keep on going with their own group so they can get more comfortable with everything that's going on. But it's still, it's kind of weird when people actually say that to you. On the other hand, it does make sense. I can tell every time I do such a breakout group and I'm the coach, you know, it just kicks in. It's it's so natural, it's so there, the listening for clues, the asking on. The new thing is that I really want to use certain phrases which are in there, and even just reading from the paper. But it's that moment that you start explaining why a certain topic like influence or productivity or energy is so important. And having done those challenges for over a month per topic and sometimes longer, specifically for influence, it's so cool. It makes all the difference. Now, of course, I know I have an advantage. Some might say it's a disadvantage. I think it's a huge advantage. Having been an energetic therapist, I have done a lot of things which are related to meditation and hypnotherapy. And the little things to get people out of their head and into their emotions, being able to do it and shift certain other things. So I like people to visualize certain things like their future role model. But if they can't, then I'll just say, okay, here's pen and paper, go write down. And that works too. And that's so cool. I've done so many things, been taught so many things in the last decades, that, wow, like I said, it comes very natural to me to be doing this stuff. The hardest thing is doing it in 20 minutes. That's not the norm. Normally it's 60 minutes, but because we have so much to do, it's like 20 minutes. Now, the other thing that I was surprised about, so we go around when it comes to roles. So sometimes I'm the coach, sometimes I'm the coachee, and sometimes I'm the observer. And yesterday it was simply easier to be the observer. And it's actually kind of hard because I want to kick in that role of coach. And well, sort of doing so is of course required when it comes to getting feedback or giving feedback, because you don't want to burn the other one to the ground. You want to encourage them, like, hey, well done, this and that, or if you considered. So it's sort of a little bit like coaching, but when it comes to the client, it's like, yeah, but this was missed and that was missed, and what if? Very interesting. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that it could be so hard, but now I know. And well, also being able to muster up the energy, even when I'm really, really, really tired. I think today was the first day that I actually decided afterwards. Well, I did go live after the training, and that was my time 1:30 that he stopped, Brendan stopped. And I needed to wind down, so I started watching cat movies that was presented by Instagram. And it was like, oh, there's nothing more cute than two cats, you know. And straight after, I came across a video from Mariella Lunetta. We've been in movement makers together, from Evan Carmichael. And Evan talks about his movement maker family. And when you read this book, then you know that his wife, Nina Carmichael, is the one who's behind all of it. It's she's the family person. That's amazing. Anyway, I went live. I talked about it, and basically all I talked about was gratitude and taking the opportunity to tell the people who are really important to you that they are really important to you, just like she had done. And it was actually kind of nice. So I had written tons of things down about what I want to share on this video. But straight after, I basically fell asleep, which was good. Okay, which was good as well. And now I was like, you know what? I'm just going to record it anyway, and just post it because it's nice. Day 3 was a good day, and it is nice to be surrounded by people who have the same interests. It's nice to be surrounded by people who are also in the coaching for a long, long, long time. People who have done CHPC for a long, 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 long time. I remember from last year that I was talking to a lot of people who were recertifying, but hadn't done much with the whole coaching. I haven't come across any of those this year, which is actually kind of nice. But it's, yeah, feels good. Feels good to be doing this. Feels natural. That's all I can say about it today. I'm too tired and I don't want to wake up too much because I'm going to go back to sleep. But yeah, job well done, Brendan. And not just Brendan, but also Michelle, Judy, and Lauren. Yeah. What makes a good coach a good coach? That's something that we've been talking about in the last 4 days. And apart from that, that's something I've been talking about in the last year. And of course, those 4 days prior to it and in all the other training that I had. But what makes a good coach a good coach? Well, today I got a few examples. One was when I was observing. This was someone who was relatively new in the game. And the funny thing is that the coachee, so the client, knew what he was doing. And on one hand, he was amazing, enthusiastic, everything. But he got into things that didn't go right in the past and now we're all okay. And the goal, of course, with coaching is to work on something that you can improve. I don't think that the relatively new coach had realized that it happened twice. I saw it, I was the observer, so for me it's easy. But it's the one thing when people say, what makes a coach a good coach? Then I always say, well, it's the thing they don't say or they skip over. And then, like, hey, I need to pay attention. What makes a good coach is also when they take you places you didn't expect. And there's nothing wrong with feeling emotional all of a sudden. People think, oh, I shouldn't be emotional during a call, but nothing more is true. By becoming emotional, something is touched and you can start working on it. You can start healing it. And I have to say, it happened to me, well, with me. And this was also a relatively new coach. And bam, she got me there. And honestly, I don't remember much of the conversation. I know the things that I've told her. I have no clue how she got me there, though. Sort of, I do. I just know that she has taken me to some places which will have a profound effect on my future. Having said so, with my other coach, which I have weekly coaching calls with, she already, we already discussed some things that I want to change in the future. I think the sense of urgency has become bigger after these 4 days. We have like 3 to 4 sessions of coaching per day. So sometimes you're the observer, sometimes you're the coach, sometimes you're the client. But the mere fact that it's being talked about influence, about energy, about productivity, about mental health, physical health, you name it, persuasion, those things are so important to talk about. And you can't avoid being influenced even when you are an observer or when you're a coach. There are things that certain people say which is like, oh my god, really, you did that? And I have had some pleasant experiences today that I'm really yeah, I'm grateful to have done it. Now, apart from that, it was nice to actually be going through all of the material. Like I said, the very first few days, it's so different to actually be reading out loud what's on the page. And I've noticed that it's not disturbing, which I would have thought. I will need to take the time to read some a little bit better so it becomes a little bit more part of me. Of course, I still want to use my own frameworks, but I'm going to see how I can make things match a little bit better, because I really believe that this high performance coaching, those 12 weeks, are immensely powerful for those who really want it. And I might actually start up a group coaching training for high performers who want to, well, take things to the next level, because that's what it's all about. And it's going to be interesting to do it when it comes to group training instead of one-on-one. So, but that's something that's in the pipelines to do. So yeah, I'm very excited about that one. And like I said, so many things have changed, and one of the things that has become more apparent than ever, and I already talked about it a few times, is for me the importance to also have things changed in company life, because it happened so many times that managers they just are not people managers, and they don't know how to value someone. And well, especially when we're talking about smaller organizations, usually there's no HR coach or HR manager, there's no social worker, there's only the boss, and there are a few people. And that doesn't mean that you suddenly want to skip all the talks. I believe those talks, especially weekly talks, are very important. And also being present, even when it's online. And I don't mean monitoring all day, but being in touch, what works, what doesn't work, what can we do, so people can actually say, okay, this is what I ran into, or this is what I ran into. And so certain processes can be improved. But more importantly, you can check if people understand what you are saying when you are the manager or the owner, and vice versa. You give the employees the opportunity to tell you, like, hey, what if? And I believe that what if part is so important. First of all, they're taken seriously, which is good. But second of all, maybe they have some great ideas. And third of all, what if means that they are missing something, and things would be a lot better once they would start to understand what the manager or the business owner actually is thinking about. Couldn't that make a world of difference? And I know that there are some out there who say, well, it's hard enough to have a team. I cannot pay another person to focus on what's needed. But what if I can get those bosses or those managers to come over and have a training with me, and I could coach them on their own things, and I could also help them to set up a structure where they could improve their communication with their people. And when needed, maybe I could join them online or wherever, every once in a while, or don't need to join. I mean, if I would be doing one-on-one coaching with those managers, those business owners, say on the trip, because that's what I've got in mind, taking them on a trip, we would do some sightseeing. There would be very intense coaching going on as well, also with their own responsibilities. And then at the end, we keep on continuing, but then doing group coaching. So those people, because they are at the same level, they can keep one another accountable. I think there's something powerful in having a group of like-minded people who are like, yes, that's me. I would like to know how others do certain things. So initially, I would be guiding the whole thing. I would be leading the whole thing. But on the other hand, when there are some amazing ideas, that's when I sort of can let go and let others decide what they're going to do. Apart from that, coaching basically is, I don't decide, I just help you figure out what else you can do. Because most of the answers are already there. And if they're really not there, then, well, that's where we help out. And with the new style coaching, and that's actually kind of cool, we are allowed to actually give some training, or maybe I should say it's expected, because we talk about a framework. And in order to explain why the framework is important, it's important to get into those topics and how we feel about it. It's after the training or before the training that we actually challenge people to think about certain things, so they can figure out, okay, so how am I going to work on this? How am I going to improve all of this? So my job right now is to go work on something that people can see. So I can actually have them come over to a trip. I still want to go to Chicago in September again, and maybe even earlier. And of course, there's the Christmas trip over here in Europe. So that's prior to Christmas, by the way. But don't you think that would be wonderful if a lot of tension could disappear in companies? Because it's not just about being as productive as you can be, but also about being seen, heard, understood. And especially when it comes to IT, which is my original background, besides going to the Academy of Arts. There are a lot of people who think a little bit differently, and I know how they think. I've been in it for over 2 decades in IT. So, yeah. But if I can get more understanding, more validation, more structure, more challenge, and for the bosses not to feel like they have to do everything themselves, and on the other hand, for the employees to feel like they're not just left on their own. Now, wouldn't that be amazing? So after 4 days of CHPC, I'm going to think about how I can get this idea out there more. And I know a lot of people think about this idea. I mean, that's why my brother is in project management and why he shares certain things. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so you're on one side, let me be on the other side. But if somehow it's going to be possible to, and I think it is, because I recently talked to someone and she actually said the same thing. I've got a team and I don't know how to deal with them communication wise. So I'm going to pick up on that and we are going to make something beautiful work. And I'm going to keep you posted. about things that I'm writing or things that I'm doing, just to let you know how things are going, because I do believe that it's so much more powerful to start somewhere where a lot of people get influenced straight away, as opposed to starting with one person and just only one person. But if that one person is a linking pin, as in they are connected to a lot of other people, well, that's going to be a big difference, because then a lot of people get influenced at the same time. And hopefully, this time in a positive manner, because I know it's possible. Been there, done that, at least while I was on the receiving end. And now it's time for me to make sure that other employees experience the same, and bosses finally can start to relax and focus on what they do good. If you want to see more videos related to change, go there, click there, yes, right there.